Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the GM. It's your guy, Boulanger. And up next in this video, man, we're going to be dealing with and having a discussion about how things could go way wrong for the Baltimore Ravens on draft night. How things could go way wrong for the Baltimore Ravens on draft night. But before we get started, man, do me a quick favor, hit like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you can get content as we upload new videos. And also, I know you guys saw or have seen that I've been less active over the last 2 or 3 days. And it's not because I haven't had anything to say or that I don't enjoy making content. It's simply I didn't want to be redundant with what everybody else is saying. There's no real Baltimore Ravens news. I didn't really see a point in making a video that the Baltimore Ravens offered a contract to Odell Beckham. Why? Why is that not news? Because the contract wasn't signed. You see what I'm saying? So it's no news. There's no point in me talking about, oh, Darius Slade, man, he was almost a Raven. Well, almost means he's not. So there's no news there. And it's just a waste of my time and your time, giving 15, 20 minutes to listen to content to tell you that Darius Slade is not a Baltimore Raven. Odell Beckham has not become a Raven yet, or that the New York Jets are in competition with Baltimore for his services. And so that's why I kind of been low key, been doing some stuff with the Around the League segment, and we'll keep doing that, man. I kind of encourage you guys tap into that. I know the first two videos under the Around the League segment was not as spicy or not as juicy per se, but I got some more content coming for you guys. Okay, but back to this video or the topic of this video. So how things can go way wrong for the Baltimore Ravens. So as I've been quiet and kind of just thinking about the Ravens and what is and what isn't happening. You know, there's been no movement, and I don't predict any movement in contract negotiations between Lamar and Baltimore. Now, truth be told, um, there could be movement and we just don't hear about it. So let's just be honest. There could be offers and we just don't hear about it. You know what I'm saying? So deals are never done aloud. They're always done quietly. And so by the time we hear it, you know what I'm saying, it's old news. Meaning it's old news to the people who actually signing deals and making trades. When we hear about this breaking news. So certainly things could be happening behind the scenes. We just don't have privy to that information. Okay. But as I begin to think about it, as draft night is 22 to 23 days away, I began to think about where the Baltimore Ravens really are. And what I began to recognize is the Baltimore Ravens do not have a quarterback. Yeah, Tyler Huntley is tendered but not signed, and Lamar Jackson is tagged but not signed. So essentially, the Baltimore Ravens do not have a quarterback. And that is really not one of their positions of needs as we enter this draft. Okay. They have two primary positions of need. We're very, very aware of those. One is wide receiver, and the other is cornerback. Now, they may need some other depth at other positions, but those two are their primary positions of need. Okay. And so when I began to think, I said, man, this thing could really go off the rails for the Ravens if they do not get some things done. And so the first way I think things could go way wrong for the Baltimore Ravens is that the top 3 or 4 players at the position of needs are already off the board. I think this could certainly happen only because there's probably 3 or 4 cornerbacks that have true first round grades. Okay. I'm not going to recite their names, none of that kind of stuff. I'll do a video about cornerbacks and wide receivers in another video. It'd make this too long. But those 4 guys could certainly be off the board by the time the Ravens pick at 22, for sure. And I'll tell you why here in a second. And then when you think about wide receivers, it's not a deep wide receiver class. Some of these guys are short, not fast. Some of these guys are tall and slow. So, it's a lot of mix and match in this wide receiver class. So there's basically 3 guys that have true first round grades. And after that, it seems to be, you know, second or third round grades on these other guys. Now, that's not to say some guys won't sneak into the first round, but basically at this point, pro days are almost done. Of course, the combine is done. So size, weight, and speed is already done. And so now you're just, teams are just going to build their draft board. And so I think that top 3 wide receivers could already be gone as well. And here's why. When you look at positions that always go in the first round, you look at offensive tackle. It's not necessarily a deep class of offensive tackle. That's why you hadn't heard a lot of buzz about them. Nobody's really talking about interior linemen, guards, and centers and things like that. Those guys kind of fall into the bottom part of the draft, 25 or later, interior linemen. And so, not saying that they don't go earlier, but typically when it's not deep, those guys fall into the lower part of the first round. And so if offensive line tackle is not deep, then you got to look at running back. Okay, pretty good running back class, but I think teams have learned now that running backs don't go in top 15. They just don't. You can get you a good running back late first, second round, third round, and you'll be fine. So let's set running backs aside. Okay. Super deep tight end class, but there's really 2 or 3 tight ends that may have a first round grade, but tight ends typically don't go in top 15 either or top 20 either, unless he's just an anomaly, kind of a freak of nature like Pitts that Atlanta took a couple of years back. So as we keep looking, cornerbacks typically go early. Especially if they have good size, weight, speed, cover ability, things like that. Safeties, some of them kind of sneak into the top of the first round, like a Kyle Hamilton from Baltimore last year. And then when you think about, quarterbacks, that market is already set as it pertains to quarterbacks. There's 4 guys who have first round grades. Will Levis actually is projected to fall a little bit. I don't know if he will. And so when you look at that, when those other positions aren't too particularly deep, then teams are going to go after the cream of the crop in those position groups. So when you got four quarterbacks, probably gone before the Ravens pick, of course, you're probably going to have 3 wide receivers gone before we pick. You're probably going to have 3 cornerbacks gone. You're probably going to have 2 offensive tackles, maybe 3 offensive tackles gone. Edge rushers is a pretty deep group, and it's a pretty good interior defensive lineman group. I forgot to mention those guys. So those guys could definitely take up the space up until the Ravens pick. But because there is a premium on the top of the wide receiver class, there is a premium on the top of the cornerback class, there is a premium on the top of the quarterback class, those guys could certainly be gone. So when the Ravens pick, the question is at this point is, what would they go with? Would they have to go with a best player available option? Will they have to trade down? Which I certainly think that could be an option as they trade down. But I have some draft day trades, a video coming up later. And so I think that not getting one of those top 3 players at positions of need, which are true plug and play guys, I think that's one way things could go wrong for the Baltimore Ravens. A second way things could go way wrong for the Baltimore Ravens is if nobody decides to play ball with the Ravens in a first round trade. What I mean is, the first round is done, and then everything closes up for the preparation for the second round. And so if nobody decides to say, you know what, let's go get Lamar Jackson from the Ravens and sacrifice their 2023 first round pick to get him, I think that's one way that things could go way wrong for the Baltimore Ravens. And here's why. Well, again, at number 22, the potential for their top selections or top options at positions of need are already off the board, and they don't have a second round pick. Okay, which means they're just left with 1 first round pick in the first 2.5 rounds, right? Because the third round pick is in the near the ending of the third round. And so here are the Ravens with one lonely pick and a couple of big needs, right? And then a huge question at quarterback. And so I think that if nobody decides to play ball and sacrifice their 2023 first round pick to the Ravens in a Lamar Jackson trade, I think then it creates a situation where the Baltimore Ravens could be super desperate. And here's what I mean by desperate. Okay. They got one pick, no second rounders, two or three big needs. Of course, quarterback is one, wide receiver is another, cornerback is another. So they're only going to get one of those needs filled, right? I got this quarterback. Actually, I got two quarterbacks that are unsigned. So I don't have a guy to even go into off-season workouts with or training camp with at this point. Now, I preface my statement by saying at this point, so they could certainly be in a desperate situation to where they take a less offer for a Lamar Jackson trade as they prepare for the second round with no pick. You follow what I'm saying? See, it creates a desperate situation, right? You need a wide receiver, you need a cornerback, and you definitely need a quarterback, but you don't have one pick to address any of those needs. You see, we can certainly suspect that somebody's going to sign at quarterback with the Ravens, but that's not right now. And I don't think it'll be on draft night. And so if no team plays ball with the Ravens and come and get Lamar and offer up some additional picks, the Baltimore Ravens are stuck with two picks in that first, I think 86 picks. I think their picks are 22 and 86. I may be wrong, so don't quote me on that. So I think it creates a desperate situation. Okay. And with no picks, they really have no answers for that. Okay. And so then the third way, which is probably the most important way that things could go wrong, is that nobody plays ball during the 2023 draft with the Baltimore Ravens in a Lamar Jackson trade. Okay. So two realities set in. I still have him tagged, but he ain't signed. Nobody came to get him in the draft, and now it's Monday after the draft, right? And here's the catch. And nobody has to trade to get Lamar Jackson. Think about what I'm saying. Nobody has to trade to get Lamar Jackson. You know why? Because he's still franchise tagged. And if they offer an offer, so if the Baltimore Ravens make him available, right? A team doesn't have to trade for him. A team can simply make him an offer sheet that the Baltimore Ravens won't match, and he still leaves for two picks. You follow what I'm saying? And so you don't even get to cash in those picks until the 2024 draft, unless you trade them away. You follow what I'm saying? Let's go one step deeper. Even if a team after the draft, so nobody plays ball, Baltimore Ravens then become desperate. Even if a team after the draft offer them some additional draft capital for Lamar, right? They've already drafted their players. Their team is somewhat set. And they say, you know what? Lamar would be the icing on this cake. He could really get us there. They could even pursue him in a traditional trade, right? So let's say they give up 2 firsts, 2 seconds. Or heck, uh, 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and a third, or 3 firsts, and that's it, right? So however they give it up. If they're a ready to win now team and Lamar joins their offense, they're now a, a playoff and championship contender if they were ready to win now. Follow what I'm saying? Now those picks, see, the 2023 draft order is already set. So when you make a trade, you know what you're getting. You know if you're getting 15 or 4 or 10. But in 2024 and 2025, or even 2026, if they give up 3 first rounders, you have no clue. Follow my school of thought. And so if a ready to win now team comes to get Lamar, now those picks are probably number 25 or less. because that team is going to go deep into the playoffs. You follow me? And so, yeah, they would get first round picks and they would have 2 first round picks for the next several years. And that's beneficial for a rebuild. But it won't be the same value as getting a pick that they are already aware of where it stands this year. So I think those things could happen, certainly. And I think if one happens, all three has the potential to happen. But I think the most dangerous thing for the Baltimore Ravens, if nobody decides to play ball with them and get into the Lamar Jackson business and make a trade on draft night. Because, guys, I do not see a trade coming before the draft. I don't see a deal getting done before the draft, right? And the only real way I see a deal getting done with the Ravens is if both sides are willing to move closer together, as far as meaning the Ravens coming up to where Lamar Jackson is and Lamar coming down to where the Ravens are. You see, because both sides will get desperate when the draft is over, right? Because there are going to be some teams that go get a quarterback. There's going to be probably 6 quarterbacks go in the first 2 rounds. Okay. Those top 4 guys, Young, Stroud, Levis, and I'm missing somebody, Richardson. Lamar Jackson aren't going to any of those teams. You know what I'm saying? In the context of a trade, because they would have already selected their quarterback. I think Hendon Hooker and I think that guy out of Stanford, I think his name is McKay or McKee. I can't remember at this point. I think those guys could go in the second round. And so the likelihood that Lamar goes to one of those teams is less as well. And so I think both sides get desperate so they could certainly move closer together when the draft is over. But I don't see a pre-draft trade happening. And if a draft doesn't happen on the first night of the draft, I think the Baltimore Ravens become even more desperate. And so I think they will certainly have the potential to up their offer because, again, they're only going to get one position of need filled in that first round. They're only going to get one. So if they go wide receiver, they still need a cornerback. If they go cornerback, they still need wide receiver help, right? And so the desperation of needing a wide receiver, especially if they don't get an Odell Beckham signed, especially if they don't really make a trade for one of the guys they've been rumored to make, I think they have to go wide receiver in that first round, no matter who's pulling the trigger at quarterback. And so now they look to the third round for a cornerback. But I certainly think, man, it could get very, very scary in Ravens Nation if any of these scenarios play out. So listen, that's my take, man. Let me know what you guys want me to know in the comment section. You guys are definitely free. Offer up your ideas on how things could go wrong for the Ravens. Listen, I'm your guy, Boulanger. This is the GM, and I'm out.